So this was kind of an odd video, but I was thinking about it the other day, and I just kind of wanted to talk about the magic of cinema, and in this case, more specifically, theater. So while I was at school in college, my darling roommate and very close friend ended up going into production design with a concentration in costume. And because of her, and because of interacting with her since I lived with her for 2 years, uh, I got very used to a lot of the different intricacies of the theater. And it is a type of art. It's a very particular art, and it's creating illusion in front of your eyes, and it's very fascinating. And part of the reason that I've always had a fascination with theater has kind of tied into my lifelong fascination with Phantom of the Opera. Okay, maybe not lifelong. I didn't find it till I was about 9. But when I first saw that stage production when I was 9, I then absolutely fell in love with it. A couple years later, the Joel Schumacher film version came out, and I absolutely was just ecstatic about that. And then as I got older, saw the play a couple more times, saw several more of the movies. I already did a video talking about Phantom of the Opera. And I just was absolutely blown away by the whole magic of the theater, of what's on the stage for the audience, and everything that goes into it, and everything that is behind it. I always have been very intrigued by everything that goes into something that seems just that's what it is, or you can believe it as being real even when it isn't. That's one of the reasons I've always enjoyed film, is that it isn't real at all, and it seems like it in its own kind of two-dimensional way, that it seems as real as anything that happens in your life, if not more so, because of illusion, because of that type of magic that's put into it, and all the work and all the behind the scenes things. That's why I love watching behind the scenes documentaries so much, and researching behind all the films that I like, because I want to know how it's done. I find it very interesting. Even though I never personally would want to go into film because I cannot abide working with that many people, I do find it ultimately very interesting. And for anybody who's seen films or seen plays, when I was a child I used to go to the opera and the ballet a lot. My dad's side of the family has family in western New York, in a small lake town called Chautauqua, and they have the Chautauqua Theater Institute. And so I would go to operas as a child, and I enjoyed them, and I thought they were fascinating. And I always loved going to ballet, to operas, to straight plays, to musicals. I just always really liked having that opportunity to see people pretend to be other people, and also to know everything else that went into it. When I was attending school at SCAD in Georgia, because of my roommate having worked on so many of the school's plays, I ended up seeing a lot of them. Plays such as Spring Awakening, Into the Woods, Mommy Dearest, on large scales and small scales, either in the main school's theater or in the black box theater that was very small, and about the size of my room, if that. And I always liked knowing that you could make an entire world either out of a very elaborate single stage, or out of a very simple stage that just has a couple of props. Whether it's the Laramie Project or something grand as Into the Woods, you can have an entire world created. And to know the people, the craftsmen, the artists that made that world come to life, I've always found to be ultimately amazing. And for example, I just recently saw a musical stage production of The Count of Monte Cristo. I personally never would have thought of The Count of Monte Cristo as being prepared to be a musical, but it ended up being very good. And it had a main prop piece of this giant spiral stair that would move, and they had stairs, and they made it work for everything. Just this one large giant set piece that they could turn, and have a couple others come in, have a pirate mast come in, have some street lamps come in, and everything seemed to work, and it was believable. Even though logically you know that the places they're portraying, such as a prison, such as a pirate ship, such as a cave, such as a grand house in Paris, such as the Carnival in Rome, you can't have all these places with a single staircase, but you can believe it because of the way that they've designed this and the way that they set it up. Lighting, fog machines, costumes, everything brings it to life a lot more, and your mind is able to sort of build that world for you because people knew how to trick you. And I find that to be genuinely magical and very, very fascinating. And I've always had that kind of intrigue, and I know not everybody does. And stage productions are an art that I hope never dies, and it really, really shouldn't, because it's a very fascinating type of thing. And I've encountered actors that want to be film actors and actors that want to be stage actors and people that want to do both. And it's very intriguing to see the difference of how you project and how you perform on stage versus how you act and how you perform in a film. And I do not think that one is greater or lesser than the other. I'm not an actress. I wouldn't know how difficult one is over the other, but admittedly, with a stage performance, you have to go and you have to run an entire 2.5 hour performance with no fuck ups in front of a live audience. You don't get blooper reels. You have to just go for it. You have to project, and you have to do it again and again and again. And I find that very interesting. But in film, you have to make it seem more naturalistic. There's a certain type of caricature in theater that I appreciate. It's one of the reasons I ended up having a fascination with drag performance culture. Is this type of larger than life caricature is very, very intriguing. Even though I've never watched RuPaul's Drag Race, every drag queen I've ever met I've always been just absolutely fascinated by and find it to be the most amazing punk rock thing ever. Because what could be more surreal than dressing up as something more and greater than you are and pulling it off? And I don't know why this is something that was such of so much intrigue to me, but I figured I should share before you bash on the theater geeks. Know that there's a lot of heart and soul that goes into that, and I don't like that film trope that theater kids are nerds or that they should be looked down upon, because really they're passionate about something, and I hate seeing anybody who's genuinely passionate about something be put down by people who are not passionate about things, and I find that very, very backward and very bullshit. And I have no patience for bullshit or fuckery. I just really don't. So, I know this isn't terribly long, but, a little bit of food for thought. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't, but keep in mind the magic of theater, the magic of film, the magic of making the illusion seem more real than reality, and appreciate it. You can apply it to your own life. That's definitely what I do. I make it seem as though I'm grander and more elegant and eloquent than I really am, because illusion is very fascinating that way. I'm just a person. I'm not much of anything, but I'm definitely good at faking like I'm not, and faking like I own the world if I wanted to. And sometimes confidence really is key. Till next time, Darklings.